This video is sponsored by Squarespace, but I'll tell you more about them later. Hi, I'm Jono, and I've been doing pencil drawings for a really long time now. These are the kinds of works that I've made, which I'm really proud of, but I don't often share the process of creating these drawings. So I've just got an email from a gallery in Vienna, and they've described the brief for a show that they're having next year, and they'd like me to participate in it, which is really exciting news. And it's a perfect opportunity to bring you along. The brief is a nature-inspired show, and a lot of my work has strong elements of nature and the relationship between humans and nature and that kind of symbiosis or lack thereof in a lot of cases as well. So I'd love to bring you along in the planning process. First off is getting a brief like this, which is fantastic to try and hone in your creative thinking. Most of the time, I don't necessarily have to work towards a brief. I've tried to just create works that form part of a larger portfolio, but it's really nice in this case to have a brief, especially if it aligns with something that I already feel really passionate about. And they say that they're very drawn to pieces that are animal and nature themed, so that's very stimulating and exciting for me. That's something, a framework that I can already bounce off of. So I'm thinking of doing something in line with Dusk or August or Handle. I really want to draw an elephant again. It's been about 2 or 3 years since I last drew an elephant. I did a rhino a year ago, which was really challenging. There were a lot of things happening at the time, and while I loved the drawing, it was just a really intense time. So being able to plan 2 or 3 artworks within this theme is really exciting for me. I think I'm going to build off what I already feel strongly about. So I'm going to use the hands to try and frame the animal, and I'm extremely drawn towards elephants. They are stunningly beautiful. I'm also from South Africa, so there's this very strong connection to the Big Five. I think the challenge here is to try and do something that still feels fresh and feels exciting for me to sink my teeth into. So I'd like to do a shoot where I'm working with the hands, and it would be useful, especially in the photoshopping phase, to have something running between the hands and the elephant. In the past, I've used ink or water, which is like this almost a more ethereal, I suppose water's more of a natural, but it was a way of marrying the two subjects in the composition. The smoke was also really helpful, but I think I prefer to maybe use white smoke this time and have it on a black background. The last two I did, I had on a white background. So I'm thinking of playing around with some dry ice, which would be really fun to see how that works. We recently had a Halloween party and we got a bunch of dry ice and played around with that, and it gave me an idea for the composition for a new drawing. So I'd love to experiment and just see how that composition goes. For me, it's extremely important in these shoots to have a kind of a broad script that I can play around a lot, and playing with dry ice feels like the perfect environment for getting inspiration for me. So I'm excited for this shoot. There's always this moment between the brainstorming and taking the first steps, and that's to try and figure out what those barriers to entry are. There's a temptation to just perpetually have meetings and never really execute on anything, and I'm really aware of that. So I try to bridge that gap as quickly as possible. I think we need to immediately jump into how we can get this done quickly. So I'm going to browse around on Pinterest and just scroll through a bunch of images of elephants and try and see what kind of ideas start to arise there. But at the same time, I'm going to try and find a practical 3D model that I can use to photograph and get the reference for the lighting and all of that correct. I've gone around hunting for realistic animal toys, and it's really difficult to find something that lends itself well to a drawing. Usually the toys just look very much like toys, and to try and superimpose elephant skin onto that with the correct lighting, it really doesn't work that well. So the solution I found to this is my friend Cassie in the studio next door has a company and they do 3D printing. So I'm going to chat to Cassie around finding a good model online and see if we can 3D print that in the position that we need and with the quality that we want. In the meantime, I'm going to start working on the hands part of the shoot. So I want to try and get to the action stage as soon as possible and start playing and experimenting. Okay, the shooting stage is a lot of fun, and I really love playing around with photography, and there's this incredible joy when I take a photo that I think is going to work really well, or even in just a photo that looks very cool. So I have a lot of fun in the photographing process. I love freezing a moment and being able to inspect the detail. I mean, it's been years of taking photos and there's still a novelty to it, which fascinates me endlessly. So I have a lot of fun planning and playing through photography and being able to go from a really fun shoot where there's a lot of experimentation to the editing phase. In this editing phase, there's a lot of creativity. Here I'll be working on those individual photos, trying to get something that will lend itself really well to graphite. And that's sometimes a lot harder than it seems, but fortunately I have all the tools that I need to take shots that usually lend themselves really well to graphite drawings. So that's pushing up the contrast often, bringing down the highlights a little bit to try and reveal those really beautiful shiny tones in flesh, which I really love drawing. The editing process is often really inspiring for me, and I usually try to take a lot of somewhat random shots that are more experimental so that there's moments during the editing process where something unpredictable is happening and could maybe spur on a whole line of experimentation with composition in the editing process. So here I'm going to just be throwing different things together, seeing what might work, and often this first shoot leads to going back to the brainstorming phase and figuring things out, and either will help me with refining my composition or might lead to a whole new series of works or an element within the works that I want to kind of refine and start including. This is also where I figure out some of the motifs that happen in the works. Each shoot is informing a little bit more of the artwork. I had a lot of fun during the dry ice shoot throwing some soap in the water as well and creating these bubbles that came out, and I'm dying to use this bubble creature to superimpose some eyes onto it and see if I can make something kind of creepy and surreal out of that. But it's a perfect example of how play can inform another artwork down the line, but that's for another series of works, so I'll have to put that on ice for now. Oh, that smoke on the elephant is just so delicious. I think we're getting to the later stages. I feel like the composition is really strong and the concept is maturing. I can see really nice progression from each of the works, and I feel like this is definitely bringing something new to the table, so I'm really, really excited about this drawing. I think what a lot of people don't necessarily see is that a lot of the creative decisions actually happen before I start drawing in this planning stage. There's a huge amount of play, and it's possibly one of my favorite things, at least when it's going right. This stage can sometimes last a really long time. In this case, I'm mostly just having a ton of fun playing around with this composition, and I feel like I'm coming up with multiple projects and concepts that I think are viable to bring to the drawing board. I hope this video is helpful to see some of the behind the scenes of what actually goes into planning one of these drawings. I used to spend a lot of time feeling really frustrated why I couldn't find reference photos for the things that I wanted to draw and feeling like it was just so much hard work. I think when the penny dropped that this is the process, this is the creative act, it's not just confined to what's done at the drawing table, it unlocked that switch and I started to give myself a lot more time and to pour a lot more resources into this part of the creative process. So I hope it's helpful to see what goes into actually preparing these compositions. Oh, also, I've just recently redesigned my website, which I'm feeling extremely excited about. So please go and check that out if you have time. It's also a very nice segue into this video sponsor, Squarespace. I've been working with them for a couple years now, and they've played a huge role in my career, not only in sponsoring these videos and helping me maintain this channel. Early on in my career, I was looking for a way to showcase my work, and I didn't have time to learn HTML and try and develop a website. If you've tried to do that yourself, you know just how deep that rabbit hole goes, and it's a huge undertaking. So having a platform like Squarespace to effortlessly design a website and make my work easy to find for collectors and make it easy for them to get in touch with me helped me out in a huge way. I never had to patch or upgrade anything. I could register a domain with them and set up an online store. And most importantly, I could design a portfolio and show my work the way that I wanted to. Also, every time I got stuck, their amazing support team helped me out instantly. So if you're looking at building a website, give Squarespace a try. And if you decide that you love them, use the offer code and get 10% off your first purchase. But yeah, hope you found it entertaining. If you did, leave a like. It helps the channel out in a huge way. As always, thanks for the support, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.